The NFL doesn't want you to know this, but 28 teams have blown legitimate Super Bowl opportunities in the most pathetic ways imaginable. We're not talking about close losses or bad luck. We're talking about complete organizational failures, collapses so epic they changed franchises forever, and moments where billion-dollar teams crumbled under pressure like amateur hour. The league loves to sell you fairy tales about parity and any given Sunday, but the truth is darker. Some teams are cursed by their own incompetence, and today, I'm exposing every single one of them. This is the unfiltered breakdown the NFL hopes you never see. Buffalo Bills, 4 straight failures. Let's start with the most obvious failures in NFL history, the Buffalo Bills. 4 straight Super Bowl appearances from 1991 to 1994, 4 straight losses, and a franchise that's never recovered from the trauma. Super Bowl 25 against the Giants. Scott Norwood's 47-yard field goal attempt sails wide right. But here's what they don't tell you. The Bills had dominated that game and should have put it away earlier. Jim Kelly threw for 212 yards, Thurman Thomas ran for 135, and they still found a way to lose 20-19. The next 3 were even worse. Super Bowl 26, they got blown out 37-24 by Washington after turning the ball over 9 times. Super Bowl 27, Dallas destroyed them 52-17, and it wasn't even that close. Super Bowl 28, another Dallas beatdown, 30-13. But that's not even the worst part. The Bills had the most explosive offense in football during those years, averaging over 26 points per game. They had Hall of Famers at every skill position, and they collapsed when it mattered most because they couldn't handle the pressure of the biggest stage. Speaking of teams that couldn't handle pressure, let's talk about another franchise that perfected the art of heartbreak. Minnesota Vikings, 4 times and cursed. The Minnesota Vikings are 0-4 in Super Bowls, but their devastating losses go way deeper than just championship games. This franchise has perfected the art of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Super Bowl 4, 8, 9, and 11. All losses, all painful. But the real heartbreak happened in the playoffs. 1998 NFC Championship game against Atlanta. The Vikings had the best offense in NFL history that season, scoring 556 points. Randy Moss was unstoppable. Carter was elite. And they had home field advantage. What happened? Gary Anderson, who hadn't missed a field goal all season, shanked a 38-yarder with 2 minutes and 7 seconds left that would have sealed the game. The Falcons tied it, won in overtime, and the Vikings' best Super Bowl chance in decades was gone. Then there's 2009, Brett Favre's miracle season. They dominated all year, had Adrian Peterson in his prime, and were 1 game away from the Super Bowl. What does Favre do? Throws a pick across his body in the NFC Championship game against New Orleans, and the Saints steal their ring. The Vikings don't just lose big games, they find the most heartbreaking ways possible to destroy their fans' souls. As painful as that was, let's talk about the most infamous meltdown in Super Bowl history, Atlanta Falcons, 28-3 and beyond. Super Bowl 51 will haunt Atlanta forever. 28-3 lead against the Patriots in the 3rd quarter, and they blew it. The Falcons had multiple chances to ice the game and made every wrong decision possible. With 8:31 left in the 4th quarter, they're up 28-20 and driving. Instead of running the ball and bleeding clock, they throw incomplete passes and take a sack that knocks them out of field goal range. Patriots get the ball back and score. In overtime, they lose the coin toss and never touch the ball. Tom Brady throws a 2-yard touchdown to James White, and the greatest collapse in Super Bowl history is complete. But the Falcons' failures didn't start there. 2012 NFC Championship game. They're up 17-0 against San Francisco and blow it, losing 28-24. They had Colin Kaepernick on the ropes and let him off the hook. This franchise has had elite talent for decades. Julio Jones, Matt Ryan, Roddy White, Tony Gonzalez, and they've wasted all of it because they can't finish when it matters. Now, Atlanta's collapse was shocking, but at least they made it to the Super Bowl. Some teams can't even get that far, despite having everything handed to them. Carolina Panthers, Cam's collapse. The 2015 Carolina Panthers were 15-1 in the regular season, had the league MVP in Cam Newton, and the best defense in football. They should have steamrolled Denver in Super Bowl 50, but instead they laid an egg so rotten it still smells. Newton completed just 18 of 41 passes for 265 yards, threw 1 interception, and fumbled twice. But the most telling moment came in the fourth quarter when he fumbled near the goal line and didn't even try to recover it. He literally pulled back and watched as Denver recovered. That play summed up everything wrong with Newton's mentality in big games. When the pressure was highest, he folded like a cheap suit. The Panthers had dominated all season with Newton's dual threat ability, but when Denver's defense got physical, he disappeared. The worst part? Carolina's defense held Denver to 194 total yards and still lost 24-10. Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware destroyed their offensive line, and Newton had no answer. A generational talent wasted because their franchise quarterback couldn't handle the moment. At least Carolina made it to a Super Bowl in recent memory, but some franchises spent decades building championship rosters only to fall short every single time. Philadelphia Eagles, pre-2017 disasters. Before 2017, the Eagles were the poster child for playoff failures. They had multiple chances to reach Super Bowls and found creative ways to blow every single one. 2002 NFC Championship game. They're at home against Tampa Bay, heavily favored, and lose 27-10. Donovan McNabb threw 3 interceptions, and the defense got torched by Brad Johnson. Brad freaking Johnson. 2003 NFC Championship game. Another home game loss, this time to Carolina 14-3. The Eagles managed just 186 total yards against a Panthers defense that wasn't even that good. But here's what really exposes the Eagles' struggles. They had one of the best rosters in football during those years. Brian Westbrook, Terrell Owens, Donovan McNabb, Brian Dawkins, Jeremiah Trotter, elite talent across the board. They just couldn't win the big one because Andy Reid couldn't manage the clock, and McNabb threw up in the huddle during the Super Bowl. Philadelphia eventually got their ring, but some legendary quarterbacks never figured out how to win the big one, even with historically great offenses. Denver Broncos, Peyton's disasters. Peyton Manning is supposed to be one of the greatest quarterbacks ever, but his playoff record with Denver tells a different story. The Broncos had multiple Super Bowl caliber teams during Manning's tenure and squandered most of them. Super Bowl 48 against Seattle. The Broncos had the greatest offense in NFL history that season, scoring 606 points. They averaged 37.9 points per game and looked unstoppable. What happened in the Super Bowl? They got destroyed 43-8 in the most lopsided championship game ever. The game was over after the first play when Manning took a safety. Seattle's defense exposed every weakness in Denver's offense, and Manning looked like a deer in headlights. 5 turnovers, 2 pick sixes, and a complete organizational collapse on the biggest stage. But that's not even the worst part. In 2012, the Broncos were 13-3 and the #1 seed in the AFC. They lost their first playoff game to Baltimore 38-35 in double overtime. Manning threw for 290 yards and 3 touchdowns, but he also threw 2 picks in the final minutes that cost them the game. The Ravens went on to win the Super Bowl that year with the exact same team Denver should have beaten. That's the definition of wasted opportunity. Manning at least won one with Denver. Some franchises had everything lined up perfectly and still found ways to sabotage themselves. New Orleans Saints, Bountygate and beyond. The Saints should have multiple Super Bowls, but their own dirty tactics and organizational dysfunction have cost them repeatedly. Let's start with the obvious. Bountygate. 2011 divisional round against San Francisco. The Saints were defending Super Bowl champions and heavily favored at home. They lost 36-32 in one of the most painful defeats in franchise history. Alex Smith and the 49ers outplayed Drew Brees in the Superdome, and New Orleans never recovered. But the real heartbreak came in 2018. The Saints were 13-3 and had home field advantage throughout the playoffs. NFC Championship game against the Rams. They're driving for the winning score when the most obvious pass interference call in NFL history gets ignored by the refs. Here's what the league doesn't want you to know. That blown call wasn't just bad officiating. It exposed how the Saints had been getting favorable calls all season because of their market size and Drew Brees' reputation. When it mattered most, they didn't get the benefit of the doubt, and they couldn't handle it. The Saints lost in overtime, and Brees' last real Super Bowl chance was gone. A franchise that should have won multiple championships was undone by their own arrogance and the league's inconsistent officiating. Up next, we have America's team that has been living off past glory for 3 decades. Dallas Cowboys, America's chokers. The Cowboys haven't won a playoff game since 1996, but their failures go way deeper than just recent struggles. This franchise has perfected the art of building expectations and crushing them in spectacular fashion. 1993 to 1996, Dallas had the most talented roster in football and should have won 4 straight Super Bowls. Instead, they won 3 and squandered the others because of internal dysfunction and Jerry Jones's ego. 2007, the Cowboys were 13-3 and the number 1 seed in the NFC. They lost their first playoff game to the Giants 21-17, and New York went on to upset the undefeated Patriots in the Super Bowl. That should have been Dallas's championship. 2014 divisional round against Green Bay. Dez Bryant's catch that wasn't a catch. The Cowboys were driving for the go-ahead score when Bryant made what appeared to be a spectacular grab near the goal line. The refs overturned it. Green Bay won, and Dallas's best team in decades was done. But here's the thing. The Cowboys have been cursed by Jerry Jones's meddling for 3 decades. They've had elite talent repeatedly and wasted it because Jones can't stay out of his coach's way. While Dallas at least has historical success to fall back on, some teams got so close to glory only to have it ripped away in the cruelest fashion. Tennessee Titans, 1 yard short and more. Super Bowl 34. The Titans were 1 yard away from tying the game and forcing overtime against the Rams. Mike Jones tackled Kevin Dyson at the 1 yard line, and Tennessee's best Super Bowl chance was gone. But this was just the beginning. 2002 AFC Championship game against Oakland. They were up 14-0 in the first quarter and lost 41-24. Rich Gannon threw for 286 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Tennessee's defense completely collapsed. The Titans had Steve McNair, Eddie George, and one of the best defenses in football during those years. They should have won at least 1 Super Bowl, but they could never pull it together. 2019 AFC Championship game against Kansas City. The Titans had shocked everyone by beating New England and Baltimore on the road. They led the Chiefs 17-7 in the first quarter and then lost 35-24. Derrick Henry ran for 69 yards, but Ryan Tannehill threw 2 interceptions, and Tennessee's miracle run ended 1 game short of the Super Bowl. These aren't just losses. They're organizational failures that expose how the NFL's so-called parity is a myth. Some franchises are built to choke, and others know how to win when it matters. The league doesn't want you analyzing these patterns because it reveals how much of their product is predetermined by front office competence. The NFL doesn't want you sharing these stories, but that's exactly why you should. Smash that like button if this opened your eyes to how these franchises really operate. Drop a comment with the most shocking choke job I covered, and subscribe because I'm just getting started exposing what they don't want you to know about America's most popular league.